The basic question of this week's Parsha is, would you like to be like Mike or be like Moshe? Let me explain. In 1992, Gatorade runs a very, very successful ad campaign featuring the all-star basketball player Michael Jordan. The slogan and the name of this campaign is ultimately known as Be Like Mike, and this campaign harps to the feelings of identification with this all-star basketball player in order to sell the product of Gatorade, which is a sports drink. Now, in this week's Parsha, the main topic of this week's Parsha is Bilam's attempt to destroy Bnei Yisrael. He's hired by the Moabite king Balak, and he attempts 3 times, being a prophet who is not Jewish. He attempts 3 times using his powers to curse Bnei Yisrael. Each time he's influenced by God not to curse but rather to bless Bnei Yisrael, and thus his mission is finished unsuccessfully. He has one last idea, which would be to essentially entrap Bnei Yisrael in a slimy scheme of trying to commit immoral acts, adultery, and idol worship. Hopefully, with those sins, Bnei Yisrael actually could be stopped. And this is how the Psukim read. Vayeshev Yisrael b'Shittim, so Yisrael are in Shittim, vayachal ha'am liznot et el bnot Moav, and they begin to engage in immoral acts with the daughters of Moav. Vatikrana la'am lezivchei Elohehen, and it doesn't stop there, but these daughters also entice Bnei Yisrael to start serving idols. Vayochal ha'am vayishtachavu leElohehen, and they start eating together, coming close together, and they start bowing down, indeed, to these foreign idols. These are 2 tremendous causes for concern. They get to the very crux of the Jewish society, the fabric of Jewish society: immorality, sexual immorality, infidelity, and also idol worship. You know what's interesting? That's not when God gets angry. When does God really get angry? Vayitzamed Yisrael va'al pa'or. When Bnei Yisrael are tzamud becomes close. They almost identify with Ba'al Pa'or. They enjoy the idol worship so much that not only do they do it, they do the negative act, but they also internalize that act and identify with it. And then Vayichar af Hashem b'Yisrael. Then Hashem gets annoyed. It's one thing to eat pork. It's a totally another thing to be the president of the Jewish Pork Eaters Club, and to show pride in doing a sin. It's interesting that the Gemara has 2 takes on the exact nature of Bnei Yisrael's sin, and we'll be able to see through that approach of the Gemara really 2 possible approaches that we can take in our everyday life, dealing with Gatorade and Michael Jordan. Now, one possible approach is that the language of Vayitzamed, of being close, is actually showing just how low Bnei Yisrael sank. That they were tzamud, they were without anything between them. Their tzamud in modern Hebrew means to be extremely close. And a language that describes our connection with Hashem, that we say whenever we lift up, whenever we call up the Kohen to the Torah, Batem hadvekim b'Hashem Elokechem Chaim kulchem hayom. Batem hadvekim b'Hashem. You are connected to Hashem. You are cleaving to Hashem. Now, cleaving, that must have been, if you're understanding samud as being totally close, to cleave, okay, so you exist still as an individual. You're not identifying within yourself with the object, but you exist as 2 separate entities that are coming together. In other words, our idol worship was not just the action, but it was also the internalization of that sin. It was identification with that sin. The other possibility of looking at it is that, Bnei Yisrael were bad, but it could have been much worse. Because the word samud is related to the word samid. Samid is a bracelet. When a woman is wearing a bracelet, it's not an integral part of herself. Yes, if there's no eruv, it's considered jewelry, and it's an accessory to her. That's why she may go out with a bracelet, but it's not part of her. In the morning she might wear one bracelet, the afternoon a different one, every day a different bracelet. It's not something that's essential to her character, to her identity. Whereas the dveikut, the cleaving that Bnei Yisrael had with Hashem, from a different perspective, was actually on a much deeper level. Becoming one, without anything in between us and Hashem. We're actually internalizing Hashem and not the avodah zarah. Very often we are affected by the people around us, by the groups of people around us. And one of the ways that we identify ourselves is with our social groups, is with people. And that's why corporate sponsorships are such an integral part of the sports and advertising industry, because it works. People want to identify with something bigger, something greater. The question is, in this week's Parsha, how do we identify ourselves? With what do we identify? With Mike or with Moshe? Shabbat Shalom.